So how do you feel about the new album compared to this is the fourth album with Mark, and after you sort of came back with Blood of the Nations was the first one. So how do you compare this new one to the three previous ones? What is the main?
I don't
difference?
really. I leave that
Yeah.
up to the fans. Really, I mean, we just made sure we had the best possible songs we can come up with in a reasonable amount of time. We spent all last year writing those songs, and
Okay.
after that, the fans will decide how they like it. I'm getting great reviews and great responses from journalists, but nobody's really heard it yet. So it's kind of early for me to judge it, and I try not to judge our own albums anyhow. Once it's out, once it's done, which is actually one of the song titles. What's done is done.
What's done is done. Yeah. But you had the first single out already, which was the title track.
Correct.
So how has the
Rise of
response?
Case?
Yeah.
The response is overwhelmingly phenomenal. It's really on target. Fans like it, so it's it's great.
Yeah. So what is the main theme of the album? What is the Rise of Chaos? What do you want to?
I don't think there really is a main theme, but the song title itself is really caught our eyes or our ears in that case, because it seems to really fit the times that we live in. Every time you watch the news or every time you read the paper, you have a feeling there's this sort of chaos getting worse and worse in the world. So the Rise of Chaos really just felt like very 2017. And since we decided to have that album title, it's even more current now than it was 6 months ago, just seems to be fitting to the times that we live in.
Did the singer Mark wrote the lyrics, or was it a combined effort from the band this time around?
No, Mark always writes the lyrics, but Peter and I write the music, he writes the lyrics.
Yeah, good.
Peter and I a lot of times have the title or the catchphrase or whatever you want to call the chorus. We have that in our heads when we give it to Mark, but he basically writes the lyrics.
Yeah. And this was also the fourth time you worked with Andy Sneap as a
correct.
producer. So what kind of do you already know each other well enough to
Yeah, I mean, after three albums, it's actually a world record for us. We never worked 4 albums in a row with a producer like that, and I think it's even a world record for him. 4 albums with the same band. But in any case, we do it because it works, and like they say, never change a winning team. If it ain't broken, don't fix it.
Okay.
So we really have a machine in place that seems to work quite well. The way that we work, we have the same producer, same singer, same guys writing the songs, same label, same studio, same everything. So that means we can really just focus on the work ahead, which is to write songs that are 100% in the style and the tradition of Accept, only brand new ideas and brand new songs without any weird surprises. We weren't really looking for anything dramatically new. We just wanted to get better songs that fit the times that we live in.
Yeah. And obviously with Accept, when you hear it, when you put on Accept, you instantly recognize the band and the sound.
Right.
So, and you've always had it since the 80s,
right.
Even though with the different producers, different studios. So,
right.
What is the secret behind that? What do you think is it the amps or the way of playing or way of writing songs that you always come out with that same sound, which is really the essence of heavy metal, if one would say? What is the main secret?
I don't know. It can't be the amps because they've changed over the years. It can't be the guitars because they changed. It can't be the studio because everything changed but one thing, and that's probably the way we write the riffs and we play the riffs, really. We even changed singers, and it still sounds 100% like Accept. I guess it's just this in the songs, the way that we write the songs that makes it so, and of course the way we play it. But it's really hard to pinpoint what it is, why it really sounds like us always. Because, like I said, we can change a lot of the components, but it still sounds like Accept.
Yeah, true. And you also have 2 new guys in the band that have been there, I think, for 2 years now.
Yeah.
Already.
They only had a marginal influence on the album, I have to say, because, I mean, like I said, that machine in place is really the 2 guys writing the songs and Mark and such. So, of course, the drummer played, his drum parts, and that helped us tremendously. But where they really shine is on stage, because I mean, Uwe is mostly a live player because I play all the guitars in the studio, and he's okay with that. There's really nothing bad or anything. It's just out of practicality. I've always played the guitars in the studio, and then when we come on stage, we share the duties on stage. Obviously.
Okay, so you've always played all the guitar parts in the studio,
the
double leads and harmonies and everything.
Exactly. Sometimes the other guy played a solo here and there, but I at least played all the rhythm guitars, because I mean, once you play once you write the stuff, you might as well play it too, and it only makes more sense from a practical standpoint to have one guitar player doing both sides. You know?
Yeah. But live, it's obvious. You
live it's a completely different story, and I look at live concerts as a completely different animal anyhow, you know, and the studio recording is so different from the way that we go on stage. Like, we're hardly ever all five in the studio at the same time. I mean, never really.
Yeah, you do it separately, all the parts.
Always. But we never send tapes back and forth. We always come together to record the individual parts. Like, Mark comes to Nashville, and you know, Peter and Christopher are always there. We're all at least together in the same room. It's never like, you know, some bands like to do that. They send each other just tapes, and he plays his part in Finland, and then other guy sends it to wherever, the US, and they don't even ever meet. We don't do it that way. We still get together. It's just not all five guys at the same time, you know, in one room.
Yeah, I think the challenge is maybe for someone to get it sound like a band if you do it just never meeting each other and you know,
and well, it's not so much that even. To me, it's always the immediacy of making a decision on the spot and coming to a conclusion. You know, when you send each other tapes, it sits in your inbox, and before you respond to it, another day goes by, and 2 days later you get a response to the idea that I just sent you. And then it drags on forever, and I think you need to be together in a room to actually get to a result quicker, you know. So that's the way I've been always working with Peter. When we start the songwriting process, we play each other the ideas that we've collected over time, and then the other guy says something, I really like that one, let's try this, let's try that, and then we start working that way, and it's like a ping pong ball going back and forth until we have a sort of a result, you know, at the end of the day. So it's a really fast way of working. If we were to send files back and forth, it would take weeks, and we still wouldn't get the same result.
So how long did it take to record this new album?
Recording was quite fast. It was really a matter of a few weeks, but songwriting took the most of last year.
Okay, so the songwriting actually takes a lot more time.
Oh, heck
refining.
Yeah. Collecting knowing what to record. I mean, actually putting it down on tape, well, it's not tape, but putting it down in the can, that's easy. That's a matter of a few hours, but writing the song to where you're really happy with it, that takes, you know, months sometimes.
Yeah. So, like I said, you have couple of two guys in the band, and you've also had a lot of past members in the band, like guys like Jörg Vischer and
Sure.
Herman Frank was there a couple of times, and there's even guys from the 70s, I think. Do you still stay in touch with any of those guys, or do you know?
No, man. Once.
Yeah.
And it's the same with the singers. And so once anybody, once they leave the band, you sort of go separate ways, and they're out of the picture, and they are doing their thing, and we are doing our thing.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't really like to comment on anything they do or say. That goes for all of them, really. I know the question always comes up: have you seen what what such and such guy, what he said and what he does? Yeah, I have seen it, but I'm not going to comment on it. And one can take a wild guess what I sometimes think. I mean, it's kind of a natural, but I'm not going to comment on what, because I mean, what's the point? Once they leave, they leave, and then they moved on. They made the decision, and that's it.
Yeah, and I could say, because I saw you in Tuska Festival, you played there in 2005 when you did a show tour, and I've seen you after that with Mark, and it seems like the chemistry of the band is a lot better from an audience member standpoint.
I know what you mean. Yeah, the 2005 tour, that was kind of obvious.
Weird feeling on stage, it seemed to be.
Yeah, I personally didn't have such a bad feeling. I thought it was okay, but I've heard that from a lot of people. It didn't really look like we were happy.
Yeah.
And but now we are.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, these last 8 years with Mark have really been a very consistent period of our time, and you know, I think we're actually a better band than we've ever been. At least that's what fans tell me now.
Yeah, yeah, and the records have done well, and you know,
Absolutely.
people get
Yeah,
great
yeah.
reviews.
This seems to be maybe the best phase in our career.
Yeah. Do you think there's still room for this kind of traditional heavy metal?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
can only speak for ourselves, and we're doing fine, and I'm having a great time. It seems, on the contrary, it seems like heavy metal has never really gone away, even though it's been called dead many times. I think it's still here, and it's got a lot of resilience. A lot of people still like it.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, more than a lot of other trends have, you know, a lot of other, you know, grunge has come and gone, and you know, but metal is back and stronger than ever. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of genres or musical directions have sort of popped up and gone away, but heavy metal is certainly has more longevity than anybody could have ever thought.
Yeah, yeah. And it seems with these big festivals still pulling together thousands and thousands of people.
Yeah, imagine that. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. People love it. So speaking of festivals, you are playing in Wacken open air, I think, on the next day.
Correct. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
It's
It's
a
going to be.
special show.
We're going to play on August 3rd, and the album's going to be released August 4th. So, yeah, totally looking forward to that. It's actually going to be a 3-part show, where the first part is Accept,
Yeah.
presenting brand new songs of The Rise of Chaos, along with some other classic Accept songs. Then we're going to have Headbanger Symphony instrumental stuff from my solo album, for the first time ever presented live on stage with that orchestra, with an orchestra, 50-piece orchestra from Prague. And the last segment finally is going to be Accept playing with that same orchestra some rearranged Accept songs for the first time live. So 3 very unique show elements there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much rehearsing does it take to put something like that together, to get all the orchestra parts and stuff?
Well, we can't really rehearse too much because the orchestra is always on the road and also quite expensive. So what we end up doing is we write all the arrangements and rehearse to those arrangements, and then the orchestra does their part. At the end of the day, it's only going to be like a couple of days of rehearsal.
Okay, so it's
I know everybody's wondering.
exciting.
Everybody thinks we are rehearsing for weeks, but the reality is you can't really, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And you have to just like let it go.
Yeah,
And
if
just
something
wait.
doesn't go right,
Yeah.
then so be it. But
Yeah.
hopefully it all
Yeah.
goes well.
Yeah. Will you be recording it and filming
Yeah.
it as well? That's good.
Sure,
It's great
yeah.
to have it. So you mentioned you did a solo album, and you've done one before that too. Yeah. So you've always loved classical music.
I have.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. I always felt like there's a strong connection between classical music and metal music, and it'd be great to put the two worlds together in a way, in a, you know, approachable way. So, you know, it sounds still a lot like me, but it's based on classical music. So it's a fun project, and I'll probably continue to do that at some point in time. But right now, I'm just pleased that this album is finally out, or was released last year, and that we're finally playing it live.
Yeah. And you also, photography was something that is very close to your heart, I think, at some point. So is there still time for that? Live?
Not right now, because
Yeah.
I faded it out last year, but for the longest time I was actually a professional photographer when Accept wasn't in existence, and I was doing both simultaneously. But, you know, last year I decided, you know, I've been so busy, and will continue to be so busy with music, that really should be honest and say, hey, I'm no longer a photographer really at this point. I'm a full-time musician again. So I pulled my website down.
Okay.
Haven't really done any photo shoots since, only for friends and pleasure, but nothing on a professional level.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So if you had to name one Accept song that defines the band.
Best known song is probably Balls to the Wall. The one that had the most influence on the music scene is probably Fast as a Shark. You know, those two songs definitely stick out. But does that song really define everything we've done in those years? Hard to say.
Yeah.
You know, it's always, I don't think it's even possible to have one song that defines your whole career.
90s albums, that was a time, like I said, for metal, there was grunge and all that, and problems with a lot of the metal bands. But still, with especially I like the album Death Row. I thought it had a lot of good songs. But how do you look back on those records you made in the 90s?
Mixed feelings. First of all, I haven't heard them in a long time because I try to avoid listening to my own albums. And then the whole time, the 90s were quite dreadful, to be honest. I don't look back at those years with good memory. Because the traditional metal was sort of out and nobody really wanted to hear it. The tours weren't going well, the albums didn't sell well, and everybody, including all the other bands that we all liked, they had the same problem. I think everybody was like laying low and searching for a new direction. And we all tried to go with the times and try to expand our style a little bit. The fans didn't like that, and we didn't really like it. So it was a difficult time altogether.
Yeah.
So that's why when we said we're coming back and we're going to do this probably, we said to ourselves, we're going to do this right. We're going to do it with 2 guitar players. We're going to play songs in the style of the 80s, and we're going to do it with all our heart and soul. We're going to, do it with everything we've got, and we're going to try to write songs that we could have written back in the 80s, just never did. That's pretty much our motto. We don't want to sound like anything new, anything dramatically different. We just want to write typical Accept songs in that, tradition of the 80s. So, if I have the feeling this is a song or an idea I should have had 30 years ago, then that's good. That's usually how I judge the ideas. If it sounds completely different, or if then I'm not so happy. But if it really sounds like it could have been written back then but just never was, then that's a good sign.
Okay, maybe for your personal influences, who were the guitar players when you were growing up, starting out? Which were your main heroes and the people who influenced and made you what you are today?
Well, there's always Deep Purple, first and foremost. Deep Purple and Ritchie Blackmore, probably a lot. But also AC/DC, Angus Young, Judas Priest, and Uli Roth. But there was also other marginal influences a little bit. I was like Gary Moore, for instance. I always liked Queen, Status Quo. So all those different components find an influence to something. You can't just pick out one guitar player and say I want to be exactly like him. I like nuances of all of them, really, for what they were.
Yeah.
And out of all that, you form your own style.
Yeah. And it must have been great later on to get to play with some of your
Absolutely.
heroes. You played with Priest and
we played with Priest, and we played with finally I actually played with the Scorpions not too long ago, because they've always been a certain influence as well. A certain, and not very, because we always consider ourselves a lot heavier than the Scorpions.
Yeah.
But it was still great to play with them because they've been we've admired them for a long time, and it was, great to play with our idols finally, on stage.
Yeah.
Here in Finland, actually.
Yeah, you did it. Yeah.
First and only time ever. Only played with them once in all these years. Crazy. You're at the Ice Stadium or whatever it's called.
Yeah, Ice Hall. Yeah.
Ice Hall.
Ice Hall. Yeah. Okay. So I think the last greetings for the readers of Metalliluola from you.
Well, it's always a pleasure to be in Finland. We love the Finnish fans, and our last album made #1 in Finland, as well as in Germany. So I want to say thank you, and thanks for the continued support for all these years. And it's always great to be here. Great to meet the fans, and I'm looking forward to many more years to come and many more albums. So hopefully everybody will check out the new album, The Rise of Chaos.